Welcome to the Film Florida podcast. I'm John Lux, and I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida. Before we get to our interview, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the Film Florida podcast. If you're not already a member of Film Florida, please consider joining at filmflorida.org. If you like what you hear on the podcast, please consider going to our website and donating $20.22 for our 2022 fundraising campaign. We also have a Film Florida merchandise page. Visit filmflorida.creator-spring.com to purchase Film Florida t-shirts, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, and more. Vanessa Alava and Suzanne Robinson are the co-founders of Mic Drop Creative in Raleigh, North Carolina. Their team creates educational and inspiring original podcasts, film and television, web and digital content, books, and apps. Wherever possible, they amplify and dignify the voices of the underrepresented, with a special focus on women and girls in STEM and STEAM fields. They have a passion for telling inspirational stories, a desire to educate audiences about emerging technologies, and a commitment to equipping women and girls with practical, professional skills. Here's my conversation with Vanessa and Suzanne. So I like to start our interviews with our guests' backstory. So help our audience get to know each of you. Vanessa, go first.
Sure. So I was raised in a very small town in Florida near Lake Okeechobee, and was born into a family full of love and always had music playing or movies going on in the background. So my sister and I just really started out doing things at home, like really interested in the script of the movie, and said, okay, well, we're going to watch this movie 100 times and write out the lines of each script. My parents ate it up and said, okay, well, we're really going to harness this. What else can we do? Oh, they're singing now. Let's get them a karaoke machine. So it really just started like with performing at home. And I think that the whole like, oh, let's start doing talent shows there was a Christmas performance at school. And my mom's old piano teacher came up to her afterward, who also happened to teach voice, and said, you should get her into voice lessons. There's something here. And it looks like she really enjoys it. So that's kind of what the spark was, right? Like we had this interest at home, and then my mom said, okay, let's get her some voice lessons. So anyway, that kind of took off, and we just started performing a lot within the community theater, et cetera. And then I went to an art school. So I was an art school kid, and just continued to really harness that passion for the arts and entertainment. I went on to study communications in undergrad, but then I was like, I would love to study business. And if I could do something in the spirit of entertainment, that would be awesome. So Full Sail University in Orlando happened to offer a program. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to get my master's in entertainment business. So it was really great because, this was obviously pre-COVID, but I was able to do this online program where I was able to finish my master's in like a year and a half. So it was really great. I got to meet a great plethora of people from all over because, again, it was online. So we got to do group projects, et cetera. So that's kind of like my background as far as education and my interest in just performing and story and the arts, et cetera. I don't know if we want to stop here and let Sue give kind of her background, or do you want me to go into like a little bit of my career?
No, let's go over to Sue. Give us your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hail originally from Pennsylvania. My dad was a university professor and my mom was a homemaker, and they were both amazing storytellers, and they really instilled the love of story in me very, very young. I can remember when I was a very little girl, my dad taking me for walks and making up these amazing stories and inviting me to help tell them and to help create them. And I think I'd pause there and just say, if you have any parents listening, it's such a wonderful gift that you can give your kids if you read stories with them and if you encourage them to tell stories themselves, because it really gives them confidence in their voice and really sparks their creativity. So those are my earliest memories in Pennsylvania. I went on to earn my degree in international business and marketing from Penn State University. And then I went to work on Capitol Hill and saw the power of story in shaping political narratives and public policy. So that was kind of cool. And then I got into television news after that and was a reporter anchor for over a decade. And so again, this power of story in helping us make sense of the world around us and current events and helping to connect all of us has sort of been a thread that's been throughout my career. And then I went on to work for a corporate media production company, which is how Vanessa and I met.
Well, yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. You all met in 2018, which of course feels like a lifetime ago given the last 2 years, but is really just a short time ago. Sue, tell us a little bit about how you and Vanessa did meet.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It does feel like there were the before times and then the after, we're hoping after times that we're getting towards now. But yes, I was working at a media production company in the Research Triangle Park region of North Carolina. And that company creates a lot of corporate marketing and training videos. I was head of the business development department for them. And we hired Vanessa on to join the team and support business development. So the company, in addition to doing corporate video, did a lot of immersive technology, AR and VR. And Vanessa and I hit it off immediately. We're both moms, we're both super creative, both love to tell stories, and we're really curious about immersive technology and other kinds of technologies, and just kind of kindred spirits because we're both very entrepreneurial. So it was a real gift for my life when she joined the company and joined my team.
Ditto. I feel the same way about you, Sue, and you know that. But yeah, no, just to add on to that, I was out in California working in unscripted television. After college, I did a slew of different things, and I've worked in production in front of and behind the camera. And, that's what I was doing out in Los Angeles, and had gotten married and had a baby during my time out that way. And as we were, my husband and I were exploring, are we going to stay here or are we going to start heading back east just because most of the family is out back east? And obviously quality of life, all of that played into our decision. But it was around 2018 that we moved out this way and interviewed for the position. And I think that, I'm a huge believer that everything happens for a reason. And the sole purpose of me being where I was and meeting Sue at that company was our friendship and what's come from that. And also got to really learn about some interesting technology, virtual reality and augmented reality while we were working at that production company as well. But yeah, that's kind of our backstory and how we met.
So at that time, you guys, have separate careers and you meet and decided to kind of change gears and set out on this new path. Vanessa, what were you both looking for at that time?
I think that we were both, again, working in business development, and we're people. So we're good at that. And we love really developing and getting into deeper nitty gritty relationships, right? Like just building relationships and getting to know people. Relationship capital is huge. And again, we just enjoy it. So that was great. However, there was this missing creative piece, I think, for both of us in our lives. And at the time, there really wasn't room to move into any creative roles at that organization. So I just remember Sue and I having many long talks, when we would go out on like different business trips and saying, we have this itch. What are we going to do? What can we do? Or what are you thinking about doing? And so basically we had this come to Jesus moment, if you will. I believe it was in an office somewhere. And we said, okay, couldn't it be cool if we did a podcast to learn more about this technology that we're learning about in the office? And what if we went further than virtual reality and augmented reality? What about like STEM and learning more about that? Because there are so many great things happening in the world that we may not know about because we're not rocket scientists and we're not coders. And then an extension of that was, what if we learned about this from women in the space, since it's such a male dominated space, so underrepresented, and just going down that path. So that's kind of how the conversation started. And then it just started to grow little leaves from that branch, basically. So yeah, I'll let Sue pop in here and give her side of the story with how that conversation went.
Yeah. So exactly as Vanessa said, I think we both were around a lot of creativity at the company we were working for, but we wanted to be creative ourselves. And we were seeing in RTP, North Carolina, there are a lot of companies doing amazing things in science and technology that we were just really curious about. So we decided in 2019, let's start a podcast and let's learn about some of these things, because they're important to all of us. And they're conversations that we all need to be a part of. We all need to feel capable and competent speaking about things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, or, data tracking. These are things that impact each and every one of our lives, regardless of whether or not we are in a quote unquote STEM profession. But also, there are many women doing amazing work in these fields. We need to have more women in these fields. And that's something that Vanessa and I wanted to foster with this podcast, and sort of shining the light on women who are doing great things in the fields. But we just wanted to help audiences that are just like us understand emerging technologies that affect all of us in really layman's terms, while, again, amplifying the voices of women who are doing the work.
Mm-hmm. And Sue and I are the mom of girls. So
Yes.
It was a really big personal initiative too, to just show our little ladies, well, my little lady and her grown ladies now,
Yes.
her youngest just graduated, that they can do anything and be anything, and that career paths are not linear and they take many turns. And that's something that's been, the running vein through all of our stories, is that everyone's path takes them down unexpected adventures and journeys along the way. So.
And Vanessa, what's the name of the podcast?
We Get Real AF. It's a cheeky name, but at the start of the podcast, we were thinking, hey, women and girls in emerging tech, XR, AI, and futurism was kind of the loose acronym. And that's, again, where we get we graph, or We Get Real AF. That's kind of the loose acronym for it. As we've evolved, we get real about a lot of other things too. And I think that as we've progressed now, going into our third year, Sue, believe it or not, of this journey, we've realized that being more relatable to the layman is the key, because hearing deep dives into technology can sound very intimidating to people.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting real about health and things that we experience every day as women, as having our own families, as being parents. So we have a slew of different information and podcast topics that we cover each week that lean into the tech and science, but from a very personal standpoint, and from a place that I think that people can digest better.
Well, and how do you come up with the topics? I mean, do you sit back and say, like, this is what people are talking about, let's go learn about it so we can do a podcast episode? Or do you guys just come up with episodes for any particular reason? How do you come up with a new topic each week?
All over the place, really. A lot of it comes from our own personal experience. As the pandemic was sort of unfurling back in early 2020, we started hearing about things like apps that would track your health data. Well, that's kind of an interesting and important conversation that we all need to be having. So, some of our topics came from things that are happening in current events. Some of them are just things that are happening in daily life that affect all of us. Of course, a lot of times those things intersect. And then we also do some research. Vanessa and I definitely try to stay up on technology and science headlines, and then always bringing it back to what is relatable and real, and that really impacts the day-to-day person in their day-to-day life. That is truly our focus, because we just honestly believe that everybody needs to, again, have an understanding of these technologies that are unfolding at exponential rates. We need to have some fundamental understanding of that and how it impacts each of us. And it's also really interesting, and that keeps each episode interesting as well. And we've been blessed with some incredible guests, women who are just so smart. And as Vanessa mentioned a few moments ago, they all share their career path, and their career paths have all been twisty and windy. And they start out thinking they're going to go in one direction in life, and then life takes them in other directions. And we think that that's equally important to share with our audience, because a lot of our listeners are young women who think, oh, it's got to be linear or I'm not doing something right. When in fact, that would be the exception, not the rule. So, yeah.
Well, and both of you are co-founders of Mic Drop Creative in North Carolina. And if they haven't already, people listening are probably saying, why do you have a company on from North Carolina on the Film Florida podcast? But Mic Drop Creative's mission is to help clients find their best stories and tell them in ways that make a meaningful and lasting impact. And what specifically drew me to both of you when we met a while back was that you're amplifying and dignifying the voices of underrepresented people, as you mentioned, with a special focus on women and girls in STEM and STEAM fields. And so while the focus on underrepresented people is why I wanted to have you on, I have a daughter who's 17 and still trying to figure out, and, maybe in a STEM or STEAM field. Talk about that specific focus on the women and girls and overall underrepresented people. I mean, that's what drew me to you. So tell us a little bit about why that was so important to all of you.
Yeah, I think, We Get Real AF, like the podcast itself, just kind of sparked a lot of emotion and more creativity in both Sue and me. And we quickly realized that it wasn't just a one and done, that we wanted to continue putting out content. And how were we going to do that? So yes, we did launch Mic Drop Creative, which is a production company. We do help organizations tell their own stories from a mission-driven and purpose-driven place. However, our main goal is to create more original content that does inspire and empower underrepresented communities and voices. We're women, as I stated earlier, we're the moms of girls, and I also have a young son. So it's equally important to me to show my daughter that she can do and be anything. And I want to show her that there are people that look like her in the shows that she watches or the movies that we watch as a family. And equally important for my son to know that he needs to come from a place of compassion and that girls can do anything that boys can do. And as far as, I'm also Latinx community, so I first generation Latina here, and it's very, very important on all of these fronts to come from an inclusive place, to come from an equitable place, and to just make an impact for a kinder world at the end of the day. And that's our biggest mission. And it's a joy to be able to think creatively every day, do something that we love every day, and just, again, show people that it's not just vanilla out there. There are different flavors of ice cream, and we can all enjoy the buffet, basically.
Excellent.
I just wanted to add, I was reading recently that we on average consume about 11 hours of media a day, which is a huge increase over even just 10 years ago. And so I think for Vanessa and me, it was important to create a really intentional space where we're not just creating more marketing videos, talking about products, doing the same old, but that we're helping, in the case of our corporate clients, we're helping companies find out why they matter and what they're doing that's different, that really impacts the community, and tell those stories. And then again, from an original content standpoint, really elevating the voices of people whose stories are not being told, because again, there's so much content out there and so much of it is the same. It's sort of people following the mainstream of whatever's popular. And it's important to have a lot of different voices and a lot of different perspectives, especially when we start talking about things that really do shape the future, like emerging technologies. And then again, as a mom of 3 millennial and Gen Z daughters, I want them to hear and to see people who look and sound like them, making an impact and sharing their perspectives. And then also for myself personally, as a midlife woman, I know that a lot of times women feel like their voices count less as they grow older. And that is wrong. The older that we become, the more experience and the more wisdom we have to share. And those voices need to be heard. So there's a lot of voices that we want to introduce into this massive flow of conversation that's going on out there.
And Vanessa, I learned this when I worked at some previous companies. It's one thing to have a great mission and good intentions, but it's another thing to execute, especially when you have to pay the bills. So how does the lofty mission coexist with the need to run a successful business where people make money and you can keep the doors open?
Yeah, I think that most organizations, if they haven't already caught on, are seeing that consumers and the people with whom they do business with want to connect with them on a much deeper level. It's not just the superficial anymore. It's not just like, oh, I need that product, or I like that product, or oh, that service. I'm going to engage with these people because I just need that thing to be done. They want to connect with them on a much deeper level. They're researching organization, leadership, mission, what they're putting out into the universe, right? What are the things that they're doing outside of just doing what they do well? How do they treat their employees? What's their culture like? I think the timing is right for us to be in existence. And a lot to my point earlier, we're just starting to see that organizations are saying, hey, we need to show what we're doing. And we would love to be able to help them find those stories that are going to connect with the people that they would like to do business with and who they currently do business with.
And having an initiative like this used to be something out of the ordinary or special, but now what you're saying is you have to have this as a mission in order to be successful, because that's what the consumers are demanding.
Absolutely. I mean, and Sue, please, add to this, but even on social media, the way they engage with people on social media, the content that they're putting out, people are constantly, we live in the time of the minute a story comes out, the minute you put content out, people are engaging with it from the time that it exists. So I think that we have an opportunity to really chat with people, chat with organizations and say, what do you want to put out? What is your best foot forward? And not just stories that you think are nice and that are going to engage with people and make them feel all the empathy and all the good things that we want them to feel, but do they align with what you're actually doing?
Again, there's so much content out there. It's difficult for companies to stand out now just by having a cool product, because chances are there are a lot of companies that have cool products that are similar to yours, but
Right.
People want to know more about what you stand for, the difference that you make. And they also want to see it in action, and they can do their research now and they can find out, if they're just talking the talk or if they're actually walking the walk. So those are kind of new things for companies, right? And certainly at the level that they're needed nowadays. And that's where we can bring value, because we can help them unpack those stories and share them with their community in a way that is truthful and meaningful and that will connect with their audience.
Just to add to that too, we talk about vulnerability a lot on our podcast. And I think that in this day and age, the things that are going on culturally, et cetera, it's a time for companies to say, hey, we are vulnerable too. And if there's anything in their past, it's a time for them to say, hey, this wasn't our best moment, but these are the things that we're doing to correct those things. Or, hey, we want to be a part of this because we realize that there's a need for this. And we're just as passionate because we have employees who's affected by whatever it is. So vulnerability is a big word that we use all the time on our podcast. And I think it just carries through to the organizations with whom we work and that we will eventually work with. So,
well, and earlier in the conversation, Vanessa, you used the term production company in reference to your company, but 10 years ago, there were no podcasts, or very few podcasts, and a production company wouldn't be involved in professional development or magazine articles or speaking engagements, but you do all of those things now on top of the traditional content creation. So Sue, talk a little bit about how you determine whether a client or a project is a good fit for your company. And if somebody comes to you with a challenge, how do you figure out the right mechanism in order to achieve their goals?
I think the only client who wouldn't be a good fit for Mic Drop Creative is a company that just wants to come in and do the traditional old school one-way advertising kind of messaging. Other than that, any company that is looking to sell their product or their service through the lens of their mission, how they're making an impact on their community, those are the folks that we are a great fit for and that we can really help, because we can help them look at what they're doing and craft a story around it. And it could be that their mission is just, they have a really great diverse team, and that diversity is allowing them to create more robust products and services. It could be that the company or the organization is really involved in a cause in their community that they're supporting, and through corporate giving. Or it could even be that it's a company that has an innovative way of performing their service, or a really innovative product that has real impact on people's lives. Those are the stories that we ask some really intentional questions of our clients and help them sort of tease out that content in those stories. And then we can help them shape their message and their marketing around that. And again, it's not just one way advertising spots like it used to be in old school media. It's now a much more holistic approach. You've got to look at your internal mechanisms in your organizations and how your employees are treated. You have to look at how you are intersecting with your community. And then you have to kind of knit those stories together to show a fuller picture of who you are as a company to your audience, because that will make you stand out in all the content and all the noise. And also people are checking.
I couldn't agree more. I was thinking the same thing while you were talking. And I was like, I don't want to use the A word being authentic, because everyone is using it so much everywhere. It's just like the buzzword. But I want to say sincere, like sincerity and being genuine. And that's what people relate to. And that's what people want. They want to be seen, felt, and heard. So to Sue's point of checking, hopefully we're all being transparent in our delivery of content and what the new age of marketing is for organizations. But if they're not, it's a sad day for them, because again, the minute something is out there, there are fact checkers and people saying, that is not, your mission is not aligned with what the actions that you're putting out into the world. So, yeah.
And this is a cultural moment, I think, for companies to really do that internal temperature check and say, okay, what is it we do believe in? What is it we do stand for? Or what are we, and it doesn't have to be a huge movement, but if they can identify their core values and really put some focus on what the story is around that, not only does that give them a touch point with their audience, but it also helps reinforce the importance of that mission internally and allows them to actually have more of an impact in their community. And so it's just sort of a positive cycle of reinforcement, both on the marketing side and on again, that word authenticity side, that it actually starts really mattering more and more to the company or the organization. So, we feel like we can not only tell great stories, but also help reinforce cultural impact within organizations as well.
That's such a great call out, Sue, because it's what an opportunity for people who may think that, oh, that's too small. Well, we need to get back to basics a lot. Marketing for a while became this, it became this machine, this thing, and this facade, right? So people want to go back to basics. They want to see what you're all about. They want to become friends with the ethos, that connection. We talk about human connection a lot. They want to make that connection with you and your brand. So what an opportunity, if you think something is small, to sit down with an organization like Mic Drop and say, no, this is what you need to be putting out. This is what people want versus the big shiny new toy or gadget or whatever is more than that.
And it all comes back to the power of story, right? It's just all told through story.
Yes, exactly. And Vanessa, I want to circle back to something you said kind of near the beginning, which I think piqued your interest a little bit in this new kind of career that you have, is the AR and the VR thing. And that's kind of still an emerging technology, even though it's been around quite a bit. And maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't think it has taken off the way people expected it to maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Talk a little bit about the evolution of the technology and where you think it's going.
Well, AR and VR has been around for, decades, especially with military use, right? And that was something that Sue and I, used to do a lot of client education on, where a lot of people, I think to your point, still in this day and age say AR, VR, well, that's gaming. That's like video games and there is no use case for it. But it's such a great medium for creating empathy, especially with virtual reality, when you can really immerse yourself into an environment and see things and feel things emotionally from another person's perspective. Augmented reality, we're seeing a lot more in the vein of glasses that are allowing, us to have an overlay on our real world environment and engage with media and the internet in our everyday life. We hear the word metaverse a lot, and we talk about where we think this is going. Well, the metaverse is that next thing. We try to, again, riddle down and digest and help people digest while we're digesting the new information, what these terms are. So when you hear metaverse, it simply means it's the intersection of your everyday life with what we consume on our laptops, on our phones. So think of a screen. So it's the intersection of everyday life without needing a screen. So the metaverse is all of these things in our purview. So you're in your living room and you want to go onto social media. Well, again, they want this without any type of screen. So if there are cameras or with holographic projection in your living room, automatically you are online, you're in the metaverse, connecting with whomever you want to connect with across the world, playing games if games is your thing, anything where you're connecting with someone without any type of screen device, that is the metaverse. It's that intersection. And we call those barriers to entry. So there's no barriers to entry.
And where do you see from like, as you said, a lot of people still think of it as, oh, that's just a gaming thing. I mean, is it a technology that you think it will become an everyday use in households?
I mentioned that the military has been using it for a while. Corporate clients are now starting to use that for HR counseling, let's say, within their organizations, where they can put someone in a situation and have them really feel what it's like to be someone else, or go through a situation that may have an altercation scenario and go through it in a safe place. So as far as those types of things being used in everyday life, a lot of corporations are starting to mix that in with training, even, let's say like big equipment that you may, there's a danger posed, there's a high cost if something gets broken. Again, people can go and do trainings within this safe environment. But I'm going to pause and I'm going to allow Sue to pop in here.
Yeah. One of the promising things about virtual reality is that it allows you to fail safely. Right. So, you're in a headset and you're, again, working on an oil tanker or something, and then there's an explosion. You can go through all those safety steps without having any danger to the person. And yet you still have the same, because you have that sense of presence, you still have the sort of cognitive embodiment that you're learning. Your body is learning how to react. Your mind is learning how to react quickly in those scenarios because you really have that sense of presence. Same thing with human resources training. Having a difficult conversation with somebody you can fail safely in that as well, because you can learn how to phrase things, how to handle an escalating situation without there being real stakes. So I think that there's true value in those types of virtual reality simulations for corporations. In the past year during the pandemic, there was some push towards allowing people to meet, not just on Zoom, but to do virtual in-person meetings in VR headsets where they are represented by avatars. That didn't take off as well. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One is, I think at the end of the day, we still want to see each other. We want to see our faces, our facial expressions, all the nonverbal communication that you get only from being face-to-face with someone. And it's not possible technologically right now to stream volumetric captures of real people in real time. Now, that will probably change because the technology is changing exponentially. But I know that there are many proponents and acolytes of this metaverse kind of technology who feel like that's where we're all headed. And I think there will always be very valuable use cases like the ones that Vanessa and I have explained here as examples. But I think at the end of the day, people want to be in real time, in real places with real people. And I don't think that will ever go away.
Right. No, we've actually been talking a lot about that with our quarterly meetings, and that, we've been able to function seamlessly through a Zoom environment, but you miss those 10-minute conversations in between meetings, or that lunch meeting where you're talking about things unrelated to the meeting topics, but are equally as important, and in some cases even more so. Those are the things that you just can't do in a virtual or a Zoom environment. Yeah.
And you want to see, you don't want to see an avatar at the end of the day. You want to see the real person's face. I think that we're just humans, and that's what we'll always read. Our core will always connect that way. Agree.
Vanessa and Sue, where can people go to learn more about the podcast and your company?
www.micdropcreative.com. We're very proud of that website. Yes. As Sue and I embarked on creating it from scratch ourselves without a lick of website creation experience. So Please go there. Go to each and every page.
And admire it.
Admire it. Yes.
Yes.
But no, that is the best place to go. It has, a little bit about us, our mission, things that we're working on that we're excited about, and things that we've already accomplished. You can also find us online. And since Sue is so great at really amplifying our social media, I'm going to allow her to tell you where to find us online.
Yes, we are at Mic Drop Creative, and that's MICDROP Creative. And we are also at We Get Real AF across social media handles. And please follow along on our journey, engage with us. We release our podcast episodes on Tuesdays every single week. We're interviewing, again, parenting experts, financial experts, career experts, and then women doing amazing things in science and technology. So would love to have you follow along and join the conversation.
Absolutely. And then we also have our individual social media channels, Vanessa H as in Harry, Alava, ALAVA, across all platforms. And then Suzanne by the Sea, correct, Sue?
Yes. My social media handle personally is Suzanne and the Sea, and it's SUSANNE and the Sea, SEA, because I love the ocean. That's where I live, nearby the ocean. So.
Well, Sue and Vanessa, thank you for spending time with us today. You obviously have a lot going on, and we appreciate you sharing your story. And thanks for all that you're doing to help the underrepresented in the industry. We really appreciate you being on today.
Thank you.
This has been a pleasure. Thank you so much, John. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Film Florida podcast. For more information about Film Florida, go to filmflorida.org or visit our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you're not already a member of Film Florida, please consider joining at filmflorida.org. If you like what you hear on the podcast, please consider going to our website and donating $20.22 for our 2022 fundraising campaign. Check out the Film Florida merchandise at filmflorida.creator-spring.com. And please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast.